Good morning to you all, ladies and gentlemen. Today's topic is yet another war with Pakistan, the last of the four wars that we have fought with them. It's called Kargil because it was fought around that area where it was centered, in fact, in 99. So it's known as Kargil 99, after the name of the place where it was fought. Now, was it a full-fledged war or was it a limited war? If you look at the scenario, you will see it looks like a limited war because the deployment of forces on either side, whether air power or ground forces, was limited. And even those limited forces had their hands tied at the back. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do that. So forces were limited, and interestingly, this war still lasted nearly 3 months, just under 3 months, from 3rd May to 26th July, fought in that area. Now, initiative once again, as usual, was with Pakistan. They're the one who started. In fact, all the four wars, other than 71, where India took the initiative because economic reasons, all other wars have been started by Pakistan only. Now, what was Pakistan's aim? What is Pakistan's objective in starting a war after such a long interval all over again? Basically, the objective has been always Kashmir or area around Kashmir. Their aim was to sever the link between Kashmir and Ladakh. By doing this, they achieve multi-purposes. One, they will isolate the deployment of Indian Army in that region. And by isolating, it means they'll cut off the supply line, they'll cut off the every supply, every type of supply, whether it's rations or weapons, will starve them out. That was their plan. And force India to withdraw from Siachen. Now, Siachen is a big bug with Pakistan. I must explain this to you a little bit. India preempted Pakistan in occupying Siachen. Before Pakistan could realize, Indian forces had landed there and occupied Siachen. For a strategic reason, it is good that Siachen is with us. Siachen is at heights. Pakistan is at low down areas. So any military engagement with Pakistan and India on issue of Siachen or at Siachen will be infructuous for Pakistan. In fact, General Musharraf, when he was a brigadier, he made an attempt. He couldn't do anything. So Siachen remains an issue with Pakistan. They say India occupied it illegally. And yet another important issue was to internationalize the Kashmir issue, which was lying dormant for since 65. Since 65, Kashmir issue has not been handled militarily. Now, this is the aims and objective. Pakistan. Pakistan has been mulling on action on these lines for a very long time. These plans were made a long time back, but these plans were not allowed to be implemented by political authorities. They could not execute these plans. General Zia, when he was the army chief in Pakistan, he tried to execute this plan, but Benazir Bhutto, who was the prime minister, and the matter ended there. But she overruled basically on the ground that it may lead to widening the scope of the war. Pakistan is in no position to take on India on this. Now, this is highly classified information, not known to anybody in Pakistan, even the men in uniform, other than few top brass. Only they know it. That is how it's been able to keep it secret for, in fact, decades. And still Musharraf took the initiative. Now, Musharraf executed this plan despite Nawaz Sharif being the prime minister there. Musharraf says he briefed Nawaz Sharif, his prime minister. Nawaz Sharif said, no, he was not briefed. So both are denying. But the fact remains that the chief of the prime minister are daggers down and not on the same line. For the audacity of the chief to implement a warlike situation without the information of his prime minister is just speaks the nature of government in Pakistan. Now, what was the plan for that matter? The plan basically was, as usual, as before, to infiltrate soldiers. The difference this time was to infiltrate regular army person, but disguised as Kashmiri Mujahideen. It's other way around this time. Earlier, it was Mujahideens or irregulars, and now the regulars who have been disguised as Mujahideens. And their job was to go and occupy high posts which have been vacated by India. I must explain to you that both sides, Pakistan and India, occupy all the high posts, vantage points on the hilltops, so that if there is any flare up, they are a better place to take on the enemy. But in winter month, they cannot stay there. Very low temperature and heavy snow. So both the countries, India and Pakistan, withdraw in winter months. This time, when India withdrew, Pakistan moved in and occupied those posts. The task given to was to go across the LOC and occupy high altitude posts on the region of 16 to 18,000 feet height. So there are two things we notice. One, they are occupying Indian posts. Secondly, they're crossing the LOC. Now, these troops belong to Northern Light Infantry and trained in this high altitude warfare. Look at the total scenario. Intrusion was mainly confined to certain areas like Mashko Valley, Dras, Kaska, Batalik sector. These are the four areas where there is maximum intrusion. How did India discover this intrusion? It's a very interesting story. In fact, India never discovered. Indian intelligence once again led both the military intelligence and the civil intelligence had no idea forces are infiltrating and occupying Indian posts. And they have been at this for quite some time. And guess how it was? It was the shepherds, local shepherds, Gujars, who informed the military on 3rd May 99 that Pakistan is ingressing and have occupied a large number of your posts. This information comes to the armed forces through Gujars on 3rd May, while Pakistan been at it since Feb. So for a good 2-3 months, Indian Army did not, Indian intelligence did not know, and Pakistan was preparing and ingressing and setting up the posts at those altitudes across the line of control. Now, when when the operation started, no, let me go back slightly. Infiltration was discovered in this manner. Now, after infiltration discovered, to respond to this infiltration, to the extent of infiltration, the nature of infiltration, all had to be taken note of and the response worked out. This took yet another some time before we actually got into action. Now, once the army was ready, they almost 2 lakh army. And first thing they discovered that it is not easy to operate in this area in large numbers. At best, they found they can use a regiment level forces, nothing more than that. So it limited the extent of or the quantum force that we wanted to use against the people who ingressed. So the army asked for the help from the Air Force. I must explain this. There was a problem. There are difference of opinion between the two services. The Air Force felt that if you use air power against Pakistan, you will widen the scope of the war. Army felt no, we need the Air Force. Never mind what happens, we must have. So this whole tussle was going on for a short while. Got over it. The government allowed it. Air power must be used. So this little hitch took maybe a few days. This was got over, no major issue as such. But the problem came like the army. Once again, when the Air Force got into action, they found it's not easy to operate at that altitude in this fighter aircraft. 18 to 20,000 feet is the height of the targets to engage. To engage those targets, a fighter has to fly at a height of 22,000 feet. The rarefied atmosphere upsets the entire calculation that affect in the weapon system. The speeds are changed, the density is changed, all parameters get changed. So it's not easy to maneuver the aeroplane also, and also not easy to engage the target with these restrictions. and also target being at the peaks. You miss the target by 1 yard, the bomb will go 100 yards somewhere else. The ground there were peaks. So these are the problem both the army and the Air Force felt in engaging those targets at those altitudes. Unfortunately, in the process, we lost 2 MiGs and 1 helicopter. Anyway, slowly, Air Force honed their skills on target during the operation. We had to pull out the MiGs and induct Mirages, which is highly computerized, highly sophisticated weapon system. Air Force was already Army and Air Force was already operating under restriction. Government of India, if I say Bajpayee, Prime Minister Bajpayee, imposed some more restriction on the Air Force. He told the armed forces, Army and Air Force, you will not cross the LOC like Pakistan had crossed. Air power was being used with the hands tied at the back. Air Force could not engage targets across the LOC, whether it's the weapon dumps, ammunition dumps, stores, any interdiction target, bridges, Air Force could not take on because Air Force were told not to cross and stay on your side of the LOC, which meant to take on the enemy on posts that belong to us and occupied by the enemy now. So with these restrictions, one by the nature and area and another by the political authorities in India, tied the hands quite badly for the services. I should have mentioned something I missed out. When the shepherds found Pakistan's soldiers occupying, they informed military in May. 2 days later, on 5th May, the army sent out a patrol to confirm the information. Patrol means at night, small group of people under a young officer are sent to sniff around if there is any telltale signs of the enemy. Unfortunately, this group of 7 soldiers under Captain Kalia on 5th May and they got captured. And Pakistanis killed all these 7 soldiers, including Captain Kalia. This is how actually this infiltration was discovered, or should I say was confirmed. Now something very interesting happened during the course of the war. Intelligence for once did a wonderful job and intercepted a conversation between Musharraf, who was in Beijing with China, and his number 2, Lieutenant General Aziz in Rawalpindi. The was taped by intelligence and was released to the media. It embarrassed Pakistan to no end and brought out their lies, straight naked lies to the world. Now a situation came where things were getting bad for Pakistan. The world had come to know that it is Pakistan who is doing it from the horse's mouth. The world has come to know, and the world was putting no pressure on Pakistan to withdraw. So Pakistan are now facing a very precarious situation of the all world powers knowing it, all world powers putting pressure, and Pakistan being highly embarrassed how to get back, how to vacate those posts under pressure. A stage came when Musharraf started pushing Nawaz Sharif that go and seek American help. Musharraf was a great guy. He threw around his weight on his prime minister comfortably. He pushed him. Nawaz Sharif was reluctant to go to America or even speak to Clinton. But pressure from the world and pressure from the world on Pakistan and pressure on Nawaz Sharif to seek American help. Finally, Nawaz Sharif gave it up and he went to America to meet Clinton. Clinton refused to meet him. It was a holiday in America. So Clinton said, holiday. He refused to meet Nawaz Sharif, who had landed up already in America. But somehow later on, Clinton agreed to meet him informally, not as a formal meeting, on certain conditions. The condition was Pakistan should withdraw to their side of the LOC and then come to me. Then I'll help you. Now Nawaz Sharif had no option but to accept this condition because they were in bad shape militarily and politically. Nawaz Sharif had to agree to withdraw and Pak was told to pull out immediately, or should I say with effect from 11 July 1999. They were asked to begin pull out. These are the conditions Clinton met. The fighting finally ceased on 26 July 1999. That is why the war lasted 3rd May, the day the Gujars informed army, and it ended on 26 July. Really speaking, Pakistan was inducting its resources from February onwards. Well, gentlemen, this was the day the 26 July the war ended, and that is why India celebrates 26 July as the Kargil Vijay Divas. That's all I have to tell you about the Kargil. It is limited war, though in terms of time frame, it lasted very long, but in reality, not too long. Any questions you have, I can answer you.
Yes, sir. Sir, yes, sir. Sir, I would like to say that it takes a huge time. It's almost 2 months to complete this war. So, is this somewhere a failure on the part of the armed forces to take such a long time to win the whole of the situation? Because there are only 4 sectors which were occupied by the Pakistan.
No, you must remember, it was not plains where you were fighting. The fighting was on the peaks. Working was on high vantage points. We lost very heavily in terms of human manpower. Indian Army lost something about 600 soldiers, more than we lost in other wars. Enemy is already sitting at the top, and you are climbing the peak, and he is firing at you. And that is how there was a lot of criticism against the Indian Army from some soldiers that it was we use the soldier as a fodder. We have to climb. And when you're climbing up, the guy on the top is firing at you. So it took long time. We had to use very heavy artillery. Artillery did some help, great help rather. It was not a failure. Nature of task was such that it took time, it took casualties, more casualties than some Chota wars, some war that we fought. Have I answered the question?
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much.